Because I Could Not Stop for Death by Emily Dickinson. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste. And I had put away my labour and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun. Or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer, my gown, my tippet only tool. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. Meaning of the poem. I didn't have time to stop and think about dying. The speaker begins by saying that she was too busy living her life to think about or prepare for death. Like many people, she didn't stop for it. But death was kind enough to come and pick me up. Dickinson personifies death as a gentle, polite figure, not scary. Since she didn't stop for death, death came to her, like a courteous guest arriving with grace. In the carriage, it was just death and me. The journey begins. Death is her companion, and they are travelling alone together. This imagery of a carriage ride makes death seem calm and civil. And also, immortality was with us. Another companion is in the carriage immortality. This shows that the journey isn't just to death, but beyond, to eternal life. Dickinson is suggesting that death is not an end, but a passage to something eternal. We moved slowly. Death was in no rush. The journey is peaceful and unhurried. Death is calm and patient. This continues the image of death as gentle and non-threatening. I had let go of, behind her earthly concerns and duties, my work and my play as well. She gave up both her responsibilities and her enjoyment of life. This means she has fully accepted death, leaving everything of the world behind because he was so polite and respectful. Death is again described as courteous. She respects how gently he came for her, making the transition peaceful. We went by a school where children were playing and working. This symbolizes the first stage of life, childhood. The carriage moves past it, showing she is leaving that behind. It was their playtime. They were in a circle playing. This adds more imagery of youthful energy and innocence. It emphasizes the contrast between the living world and her journey away from it. Then we passed big fields of grain ready to be harvested. This represents adulthood, maturity, or the peak of life. The grain gazing could symbolize quiet reflection or fullness. Then we passed by the setting sun. The sun going down symbolizes the end of life. It's the final stage before death, old age or fading into death. Or rather, he passed us, maybe, the sun passed us. Dickinson corrects herself. Now that she is dead, time continues for the world, but she has stopped moving with it. She's no longer part of earthly life. The evening dew grew cold and made me shiver. This line adds a sense of coldness, signaling the physical reality of death. I was wearing a very thin dress, like delicate silk. Gossamer is a very light, fine material, almost like a spider web. It symbolizes the fragility of life and the soul's gentle state after death. The shivering emphasizes that she is no longer alive in the usual sense. My shawl was just made of tulle, a net-like fabric. Even her clothing is light-weighted. This symbolizes the poet was not ready for this long journey, as her cloths were also inappropriate for that cold journey of death. It shows she is no longer in the physical world. She's in a different, almost weightless state. We stopped in front of what looked like a house. The carriage stops at a place that looks like a house but isn't quite normal. This symbolizes her grave, just a small bump in the earth. The house is actually a burial mound or grave, raised slightly above the ground. The roof could barely be seen. The grave is modest, almost hidden. This suggests how humble and simple death appears from the outside. The edge of the roof was underground. The house is mostly buried, again confirming that this is a metaphor for the grave. Death is shown as a place she will now live. It's been centuries since that day. She's speaking from beyond time. Death happened long ago, but she still remembers it clearly. But it feels shorter than a single day. Time in eternity is different from earthly time. Even centuries feel like less than a day, showing how eternal existence changes one's perception. Since the moment I realized that the horses, she recalls when she first noticed the direction of the carriage, the moment she understood they were heading toward death and beyond. Were taking me toward eternity. The journey with death is not to an end, but to eternity. She now knows that this final ride leads to everlasting life. Conclusion. Emily Dickinson presents death as a peaceful, polite and inevitable companion. Instead of frightening us, she describes it as a kind escort who gently takes her from life into eternity. The carriage ride symbolizes the journey from life through childhood, maturity and old age into the afterlife. She reflects from beyond the grave, showing that while death ends earthly life, it begins an eternal existence. Her calm, respectful portrayal encourages readers to see death not as a terror but as a natural and even civil transition.